Like a mountain carved by time, Jane Fonda stands unshaken. Once the rebel in leg warmers, now a climate warrior in silver hair and fierce poise. From Barbarella to bold activism, her voice has only grown louder, her spine straighter with purpose, not posture. Once the husky-voiced siren of body heat, now she owns Broadway stages with gravel in her tone and grit in her step. Kathleen Turner traded the screen queen shimmer for raw roles, candid interviews, and fierce arthritis advocacy. Less red carpet, more real talk. As Forrest Gump's Mama, she made us cry. Now Sally Field moves with quiet force, hair silvered, eyes sharp with insight. She swapped rom-com charm for producing credits and political commentary, less America's sweetheart, more America's conscience in motion. Once drenched in blood as Carrie, now she strolls in denim through Texas fields, camera in hand, framing life with quiet grace. Sissy Spacek, once Hollywood's fragile firebrand, now channels her edge into music, family, and roles that echo resilience more than red carpets. She once turned menswear into a revolution in Annie Hall. Today, Diane Keaton leans into her eccentric charm, wide-brimmed hat still firmly in place. At 79, she photographs sunlit ruins and produces films, her posture proud, her voice still threading humor through honesty. In the 80s, she shimmered on stage like a comet in leather and lace. Now 79, Cher runs a gelato company, tweets with bite, and works on animal rights. Her jet-black hair has turned silver blonde, but her defiance hasn't dulled. It's just traded rhinestones for resolve. She was the heart of John Hughes' teen dreams. Red hair, rolled eyes, unforgettable sass. Now at 57, Molly Ringwald pens essays on aging, raises daughters, and reclaims her narrative with quiet precision. The Brat Pack icon became a sharp voice on power, consent, and survival. Once cloaked in latex as Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer now walks through vineyards, helming her clean fragrance brand with windswept hair and grounded charm. At 67, she's choosier with scripts, sharper with purpose, a former enigma turned intentional artisan of both scent and story. From Scream Queen in Bloodstreaked scenes to silver-haired sage holding an Oscar, Jamie Lee Curtis traded horror roles for healing work. At 66, she mentors young actors, champions sobriety, and wears every wrinkle like a badge, still loud, still fierce, just differently lit. From the power suits of Working Girl to low-key days in Aspen, Melanie Griffith's transformation speaks softly but firmly. Once Hollywood's magnetic ingenue, she now champions recovery and animal welfare. Her signature blonde is subtler, her style pared down, but her spirit stays rebelliously intact. She once dove from ocean cliffs as the unforgettable mermaid in Splash. Today, Daryl Hannah lives off-grid, tending solar panels and fighting for environmental justice. Her windswept hair now grays naturally, her movements slower, grounded, not in celebrity, but in fiercely chosen purpose. She once soared beside Tom Cruise in Top Gun, commanding screens with steely charm. Now, Kelly McGillis teaches theater and lives far from Hollywood's lens. Her cropped silver hair and unfiltered honesty reflect a woman who stepped out of the spotlight to reclaim her story, on her terms. She blazed like a comet, iconic hair, that red swimsuit, a force in every frame. Farrah Fawcett didn't fade. She shifted into raw, fearless roles and public battles with illness. Even in her final act, she confronted mortality with art, dignity, and a refusal to be erased. Before we continue these amazing celebrity transformations, here's a quick challenge for you. Can you subscribe to ThenVsNow Legends in the next 5 seconds? Smash that subscribe button and join us on this journey through time with your favorite stars. Once the ingenue of The Outsiders, now a poised force in indie dramas and Capitol Hill testimony. Diane Lane, now 60, wears her age with intention, looser curls, quieter presence, deeper roles. From red carpets to advocacy, she shifted from muse to measured voice. Remember her ethereal gaze in Paris, Texas? These days, Nastasia Kinski steps away from the flashbulbs, choosing nature, poetry, and spiritual depth. At 64, she's softer in silhouette, but sharper in soul, an actress who once seduced the screen, now chasing stillness. The rebel in the Breakfast Club once whispered from behind black eyeliner. Now, Ally Sheedy speaks boldly as a mentor and advocate. At 62, she teaches drama and supports LGBTQ+ youth. Her look relaxed, silver strand showing. No longer cast as misunderstood, she's rewriting the script herself. Back to the Future no more, Leah Thompson now directs indie films with quiet precision. The girl next door from Hill Valley has traded tease bangs for a sleek bob, and her warm energy now fuels the next generation behind the lens. At 63, she builds stories instead of headlines. From the last of the Mohicans to modern-day healer, Madeline Stowe stepped away from fame to care for family and explore humanitarian work. Her once volcanic screen presence now simmers in softer tones, her dark hair streaked with silver, her choices rooted in depth over dazzle. Once America's rom-com darling with a tousled bob and bright grin, now Meg Ryan returns with silver streak hair and a director's eye. At 63, she's behind the camera, shaping stories with quiet precision, less meet cute, more meaning, forged from decades of reinvention. Beetlejuice. Heathers. She was Gen X's brooding muse. Today, Winona Ryder stares down the upside down, her jet black hair now a statement of steadiness. At 53, she's reclaimed her place, respected, unshaken, and far more than a comeback, a constant on her own terms. She once glided through red carpets in porcelain grace. Now Nicole Kidman commands sets as producer and star, her voice steadier, her gaze steelier. At 57, curls looser, presence deeper, she's traded ingenuous scripts for layered women with fire beneath their silence. She drove off that cliff in Thelma and Louise, but Geena Davis never crashed. She soared into advocacy. At 69, with softened features and sharp focus, she leads research on gender and media. The tousled red hair remains, but the mission is mightier, rewriting the rules behind the screen. She once snapped a pink laptop shut as Elle Woods. Now Reese Witherspoon builds media empires. At 49, her sunny style leans tailored, her blonde sharper, her gaze more exacting. Actress turned powerhouse, she produces stories where women lead, not just in fiction, but in fact. In the 90s, she radiated edge and point of no return. Then Bridget Fonda walked away. Now 61, she lives quietly outside fame's orbit. Her once iconic blonde cropped short, her presence rare. Not vanished, redefined. She chose the unseen chapters over the spotlight's relentless loop. Like wildflowers through sidewalk cracks, Drew Barrymore bloomed through chaos. Child star, rehab survivor, now talk show host with tousled waves and open arms. At 50, she's laughter, candor, and resilience in motion, a former Hollywood wildcard turned nurturing powerhouse. Once the raw nerve of 90s indie cinema, Jennifer Jason Leigh now speaks in subtler tones, hair darker, eyes wiser, posture anchored. At 63, she crafts complex roles, co-writes scripts, and stays just outside the spotlight, shaping stories with quiet, surgical intensity. She mesmerized in Labyrinth, wide-eyed and windswept. Today, Jennifer Connelly rides jet planes in Top Gun Maverick, her grace grounded, her beauty burnished. At 54, she balances family, film, and advocacy, less fantasy heroine, more architect of calm command. She once faced demons in the silence of the lambs. Now, Jodie Foster commands behind the camera with equal force. At 62, her silver streak hair and crisp blazers reflect a mind sharp as ever. From prodigy to director, she shaped Hollywood not by fame, but by fiercely chosen words. The girl from Adventures in Babysitting now juggles motherhood, science, and indie films. Elizabeth Shue, 61, has traded her tousled blonde curls for a relaxed, natural look and a quiet intensity. A former screen sweetheart turned neuroscience advocate, she's still chasing deeper roles. She once launched a million haircuts as Rachel Green. Now, Jennifer Aniston blends star power with producer grit. At 56, her style is sleek, her voice more grounded, and her mission clearer, spotlighting female-driven stories in mental health, not just red carpet perfection. Gray curls frame her now, unapologetic and unfiltered. Once the dewy face of 4 weddings, Andie MacDowell, at 67, walks runways and shoots films that celebrate age, not mask it. She's moved from muse to movement, owning every crease, every camera, every quiet rebellion. From blockbuster blonde in The Mask to wellness entrepreneur in Linen and Flats, Cameron Diaz, now 52, swapped studio lights for homegrown wine and motherhood. She chose retreat over red carpet. Less spectacle, more substance, designing a life beyond the lens. Like carved obsidian, Salma Hayek's presence only deepens with time, fiery in youth, commanding in maturity. At 58, she blends couture with advocacy, acting with producing, glamour with grit. From Frida to philanthropy, her roles now reflect the power she's always held. She once clung to a sinking ship in Titanic. Now, Kate Winslet anchors roles with raw truth and fierce empathy. At 49, her features have matured with grace, her voice steadied by purpose. Whether exposing societal flaws on screen or off, she's embraced complexity over perfection. From Oscar Gold in Shakespeare in Love to founding Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's arc defies expectation. At 52, she favors wellness over red carpets, minimalist linens over gowns. Her California cool beauty remains, but now it's paired with a brand, a mission, and unapologetic control. She danced through Chicago in stilettos and sequins. Now Catherine Zeta-Jones curates luxury lines and plays queens with commanding ease. At 55, her raven hair remains, but her persona has deepened, regal, calculated, yet warm. Less ingenue, more empire on her own terms. Katana in hand, she redefined vengeance in Kill Bill. Now at 55, Uma Thurman favors layered dramas and mothering off-screen. Her stance is less coiled, more composed. Her gaze still cuts, but with insight. She's moved from muse to mentor. No less fierce, only more focused. She once ruled the 90s in plaid skirts and valley girl charm. Today, Alicia Silverstone, 48, lives by eco-values, hair natural, voice calm but firm. From clueless icon to outspoken vegan and mom, she swapped spotlight for sustainability, fame for fierce conviction. Once elven and ethereal in The Lord of the Rings, Liv Tyler now strolls London streets in understated coats, raising children and choosing indie projects. At 48, her voice is softer, but her path more deliberate, a quiet force balancing lineage, legacy, and personal truth. She once slayed vampires in Buffy. Now she balances business, family, and selective screen returns. At 48, Sarah Michelle Gellar wears softer tones, but her stance is sharp, purposeful. She's shifted from teen icon to CEO and advocate, still fierce, just no longer fighting in shadows. From I Know What You Did Last Summer to quiet motherhood and voiceover work, Jennifer Love Hewitt has stepped behind the noise. At 46, her once sleek glamour is now rooted in comfort, her focus turned inward. She hasn't disappeared, she's simply tuned into a different frequency. She ran from Masked Killers and Scream, but today Neve Campbell moves with calm defiance. At 51, she embraces indie projects and advocates for adoptees, her dark curls looser, her eyes more knowing. She's traded scream queen chaos for quiet impact, still haunting, but on her terms. She once stunned in black leather and tabloid storms. Now Angelina Jolie, at 50, steps lightly through refugee camps and policy halls. Her features are sharper, her presence quieter, but her impact deeper. From action star to UN envoy, she's rewritten her legacy on her own terms. From My Cousin Vinny, sass to Marvel's Aunt May, Marissa Tomei has always danced between fire and grace. At 62, she embraces stage work and activism, curls looser, voice wiser. She's no longer Hollywood surprise. She's its steady, soulful pulse, thriving beyond the spotlight. crisp suits, steel gaze. Robin Wright as Claire Underwood redefined power. At 59, she steps behind the lens, directing with calm command. Once the luminous princess bride, now a force shaping stories with precision, her evolution isn't loud, but it's impossible to ignore. She once raced tornadoes in Twister. Now Helen Hunt directs with a calm, steady lens. At 62, her sun-kissed hair is lighter, her pace more deliberate, her focus sharpened by advocacy and craft. No longer chasing storms on screen, she now creates space for stories with emotional force. Nobody put her in a corner in Dirty Dancing, and Jennifer Grey still moves with quiet rebellion. At 65, her curls are silvered, her energy reflective. After stepping back, then stepping in again, she writes, speaks, and reclaims her voice. No longer a teen star, but a storyteller reborn. She once mesmerized in Blade Runner, futuristic and fearless. Now, at 65, Sean Young lives mostly off-stage, her classic noir look softened by time. Often outspoken, sometimes exiled, she remains unapologetically herself, resilient, complex, and unwilling to fade into fiction. Like vintage velvet, Virginia Madsen's presence has grown richer with time. Once the luminous heart of Sideways, now a champion of indie cinema and documentary work. At 63, with sunlit curls and unforced charm, she shapes her own narrative, off-script, but never offbeat. She broke sci-fi's boys' club as Ripley, unyielding, unforgettable. Now at 75, Sigourney Weaver still commands screens, her stance regal, her voice a quiet thunder. From alien slayer to environmental advocate, she's become a timeless archetype of intelligence and force. Once Hollywood's most unpredictable leading lady, Deborah Winger, now 70, chooses life far from the spotlight, wild curls, weathered ease, uncompromising spirit intact. From terms of endearment to indie gems, she carved career by walking away, not fading out. Once lighting up terms of endearment, Shirley MacLaine now writes from mountaintops and speaks of past lives with calm conviction. At 91, her auburn hair has turned soft silver, her stride deliberate. More mystic than movie star, she's transcended fame, choosing cosmic truths over applause. She once burned through Frances with feral brilliance. Now Jessica Lange delivers haunting grace on stage and screen. At 76, her blonde waves have mellowed, her roles grown darker, deeper. From muse to master, she inhabits every line like a poem, with shadows that speak louder than light. She once transformed in every role, Margaret, Miranda, Sophie. At 75, Meryl Streep's range remains unrivaled, her silvery hair now a crown of earned reverence. Behind the scenes, she champions equity and art with quiet force. Not a legend resting, but one still redefining the stage. Once the soft-spoken siren of LA Confidential, now Kim Basinger lives quietly, her platinum hair relaxed, her presence more private than polished. At 71, she champions animal rights and anxiety awareness. Less spotlight, more soul, trading mythic beauty for real voice. She lit up screens with giggles and gold locks in Private Benjamin. At 79, Goldie Hawn radiates joy still, off-camera, in yoga gear, co-leading a mindfulness nonprofit. She's moved from Hollywood's pixie to wellness pioneer, aging not out of relevance but into depth. She once sparred with Sam Malone in Cheers, her wit razor-sharp, her timing flawless. Now 75, Shelley Long appears rarely, choosing family and low-key living over press lines. Her blonde bob's softer, voice quieter. She left fame's noise, but her legacy still echoes. She once trained like a warrior for Terminator 2. Now Linda Hamilton walks with the calm strength of someone who's faced real battles off-screen. At 68, her frame is lean, her silver hair cropped close, her voice gravel-tough. She's lived through fire, and now she teaches survival by example. Once the face of a generation in Blue Lagoon, Brooke Shields now writes, produces, and challenges beauty standards she once embodied. At 59, her bold brows remain, but her style is sharper, her voice louder. No longer framed by others, she frames her own story, unfiltered, unapologetic. She defined teen fantasy in Fast Times, then quietly stepped away. At 61, Phoebe Cates runs a boutique in New York, her once iconic dark hair worn naturally, her presence elusive. She didn't fade, she chose privacy over press, building a life where she writes her name in peace, not headlines. Once the cool blonde of moonlighting, Sybil Shepherd lit up screens with sharp wit and effortless allure. Today, her silver bob frames a woman who traded red carpets for causes, advocating for civil rights with the same boldness that once owned every scene. Her fire didn't fade, it simply found new direction. Like a chameleon draped in silk, Isabella Gianni moved from tragic heroines to avant-garde icon. The jet black waves have softened, but her gaze remains defiantly French, fiercely independent. Now a voice for women's rights, she crafts impact with intention, not applause. Artistry never aged, it evolved. Remember her in The Great White Hope, commanding the screen with quiet intensity? Now 85, Jane Alexander walks with poise earned from decades of stagecraft and service. Her white hair is a crown, not a concession. She led the National Endowment for the Arts and still mentors the next wave with unshaken grace. From the Rose to Broadway royalty, Bette Midler once belted through stages with feather boas and fire. Now 79, her curls are softer, her voice deeper with conviction. She champions green spaces in New York, turning star power into real-world change. The divine Miss M didn't fade, simply reshaped the spotlight. Once the blonde bombshell of Melrose Place, Heather Locklear reigned over 90s primetime with smirks and stilettos. At 63, the glossy waves remain, but behind them stands a woman reshaped by recovery and resolve. No longer chasing fame, she advocates for mental wellness, choosing truth over tabloid gloss. Remember her in Risky Business, All I See Confidence and Velvet Menace? Rebecca De Mornay now radiates a quieter force. The platinum hair is cropped, her smile measured, not performed. She stepped away from the spotlight, raising children and producing indie films, proof that reinvention isn't loud, just lasting. Pretty Woman made her America's sweetheart, all megawatt smile and unshakable charm. Now 57, Julia Roberts wears earth tones over sequins, and her laughter lines speak of choices, not time. She produces, parents, and promotes change, proving charisma doesn't dim. It simply deepens when directed inward. She once shaved her head for G.I. Jane. Now at 62, Demi Moore defies expectations with silver streak hair and a spine of steel. Once a tabloid magnet, she's become a wellness advocate and memoirist, using her voice to reclaim her narrative. The action is quieter now, but never less fierce. From Speed to The Blind Side, Sandra Bullock owned every genre with grit and grin. At 60, the rom-com queen favors clean lines and privacy, raising her children away from flashbulbs. She's taken the producer's chair and life's reins with equal control. Less spectacle, more substance. She once crossed her legs and rewrote cinematic history in Basic Instinct. Now 67, Sharon Stone's cropped blonde hair and bold suits frame a woman who paints, writes, and speaks out on brain health. No longer the siren, but the sage, her allure was never just in the gaze, but in the guts. From Thelma and Louise rebel to red carpet radical, Susan Sarandon's fire never flickered. At 78, with silver curls and steel resolve, she merges art and activism, marching, mentoring, and refusing silence. Her power was never just in performance, but in persistence. Stardom, for her, was always a platform. Her voice once whispered volumes in the piano. Now at 67, Holly Hunter moves through indie sets and advocacy circles with the same fierce clarity. The pixie cut remains, but now frames a woman focused more on depth than dazzle. Her craft sharpened, her purpose clearer, no fanfare, just formidable truth. From the Addams Family's deadpan darling to indie film's dark muse, Christina Ricci carved her path in shadows and sharp roles. Now 45, with jet black hair and a gaze that sees straight through, she produces and parents on her terms. No longer Hollywood's odd girl out, but its quietly commanding force. Once Friends obsessive Monica, Courtney Cox was sitcom royalty with razor wit and perfect hair. At 60, the brunette locks remain, but her focus is shifted behind the lens, directing, raising awareness for ALS, and showing that control isn't neurotic, it's powerful. Fame was just the intro, this is the rewrite. In American Beauty, she cracked open suburban perfection. At 67, Annette Bening steps into roles in real life with fierce authenticity. Her silver streak hair and open stance reflect a woman who leads with conscience, not applause. A champion for arts education, she's traded stardom for stewardship. ThenVsNow Legends is feeling a bit lonely. 99% of you haven't subscribed yet. Show us some love and hit that subscribe button so we can keep bringing you the jaw-dropping journeys of your favorite stars. And if you're as fascinated by then and now glow-ups as we are, check out our previous videos. Trust us, they're totally worth your time and ours too.